This is a general overview of the scoring system used in cheer. Now, this says elite, but it also applies to our prep teams. Just their total numbers are a little different, and it applies to all levels. So level 1 as well can learn from this. Preps and level 1 just don't do tosses. That's the main difference in the score sheet. Now, out of these main categories you see listed here, essentially those scores come from 2 different categories here: difficulty score and the execution score. Now, if a routine is performed as choreographed, we almost always max out our difficulty in most of the categories. The only things that can pull that down is if, let's say, an athlete is late to a tumbling spot so they don't throw their pass. We might not get full difficulty there. Or let's say an athlete turns their hips too soon in a stunt, so like the flyer was supposed to do a half up, but she actually looks like she's doing a quarter up. That could drop our stunt difficulty. Or let's say a stunt falls and they aren't able to get up and perform another stunt element. That could really affect our difficulty. So, like I said, if a routine is performed as choreographed, difficulty should be maxed out. And at a competition, we almost always assume everyone is maxing out this difficulty. So we are way more worried about this spot right here, which is our execution score. Execution is how clean things look, how good the timing is. Our flyers looking stable in the air, our base is not wobbling around. In tumbling, straight legs, pointed toes, same with jumps, our timing for all those skills. That is what makes or breaks a team, and that is really what separates first to last place, is how good the skills are executed. Now, execution really comes from consistency at practice. How often are the girls able to practice these skills to get them more solid, more stable, to get those straight legs, pointed toes, etc. This last category, it has to do with the difficulty. So these are the drivers. This basically just has to do with the amount of athletes we have doing the skills. So it varies depending on team size. So like a team of 15 has a certain number they have to do versus a team of 11 has a certain number they have to do, etc. So that's like the meat of the score sheet is found in the building and the tumbling. But then you also have this overall judge who looks at the dance and the formations and transitions. So the dance, if it looks complex, gets a good difficulty score, but the dance moves all have to be tight and clean and synchronized to get that high execution. Formations and transitions, as long as the athletes aren't running like crazy pants to their spots and that no one is running like across the floor to get to a spot, they should get a good score there. Now, routine creativity is something that really doesn't have to do with what the athletes are performing on comp day. That's more of what we, choreograph the routine as. But this has everything to do with what the athletes do on comp day, their showmanship. How well are they looking at the judges and smiling and performing? And if judges see a mistake made, do the athletes show it on their face, or do they bounce back and still smile and have good energy from beginning to end, especially when they get to dance? The judges are really looking like, do they look tired, or are they still performing and keeping up? So all of this gets added up to be the total score at the bottom. We call this the raw score. So this is a basic score, like what is our routine scoring as is right now? Like let's say they scored a 47.2. So that score will get doubled, or essentially it gets the percent out of 50. So that final score would end up being a 94.4. But if there are deductions, that is not actually our final score. So with deductions, there are a couple main categories here. We have athlete fall, that's if someone touches in their tumbling. Major athlete fall, that's if an athlete like belly flops in their tumbling, like really hits the ground. Building bobble, that's where a stunt looks like it's going to come down, but it's saved. Building fall, that's an athlete, a flyer comes down in a stunt, but she doesn't touch the ground. This one is the biggest deduction, is where a flyer falls from a stunt and any part of her touches the ground. It could even be like a fingertip touches the ground. They'll count it as a major building fall. So if your routine has 0 deductions, then you keep your raw score, which is great. But like, let's say you have an athlete fall, would be a minus 0.15 from that score. So our final score, even though our raw score was a 94.4, our final score with a deduction would be a 94.25, which is still not too bad of a score. So this is why hitting 0 doesn't always, indicate placement at all, because it really comes down to this category here, the execution. How well are we performing our skills? Now, if you want to see a sample score sheet from the past and really see it broken down, you can watch the other videos tagged below. But if this is enough for you, this will get you by on comp day.